How you doing, good people? This is Dave Bit Animal. Okay, so Konami back around the early to mid 80s, they were some of the champions of arcade gaming. I mean, they had done Time Pilot, Yar Kung Fu, Scramble. I want to say Rock and Rope was theirs. They did a lot of really good arcade titles. And so it came as no surprise once the Nintendo Entertainment System started to gain steam in America, and the Famicom had already generated some buzz and was rolling along pretty well in Japan, that they would start to roll out some of their arcade titles on those consoles. They started off with Gradius and Stinger and Laser Invasion, stuff like that. And then they decided to reach back to 1985 and take one of their titles from that year and port it over to the home consoles. The result is today's game. It was called Green Beret in Europe and Japan, but in America it was known as Rush N Attack. Get it? Rush N Attack. Okay, so Rush N Attack, you're placed in the role of this unknown special ops soldier, and you're charged with rescuing this group of POWs from a Siberian prison camp before they're executed by a firing squad. In order to do that, you traverse a series of levels, and your only weapon starting out is a knife. So in true video game fashion, you use what you find. So during the course of the game, you kill enemy soldiers, and some of them will drop. They'll drop rocket propelled grenade launchers. They'll drop flamethrowers, and they'll drop hand grenades. You pick those weapons up. They have a limited amount of rounds to fire off, and you use them. You use them sparingly. You can also just divert back to your knife and use it instead of using those weapons to save them for later use. The gameplay is really straightforward in Rush N Attack. There's not a whole lot of there's not any exploration really. You go from left to right, you kill enemies, you keep going from left to right. And there are ways that there are things Konami put in place to kind of keep you from standing still during the course of the game. If you take too long, then enemies will start getting tougher. A bomber will fly across the screen and start dropping bombs. And if you survive all those things, then you'll just automatically die if you take too long. An invisible time limit will kill you. Rush N Attack is a cool game. It has actually some really good music for 1987. Not Legend of Zelda quality or Rygar quality, but it was a really solid soundtrack for that time frame. Graphically, it's serviceable. It looks like a scaled down version of the arcade title, and that was pretty much what you could ask for with the NES in 1987, because a lot of publishers and a lot of developers hadn't really tapped the full potential of the console yet. So Rush N Attack is a solid game. It's a serviceable game. It's not groundbreaking by any means. I mean, for one, there's no real ending to the game. It keeps looping because that's what arcade games used to do. It can get kind of cheap, kind of brutally hard, but that's what arcade games used to do. And this is your quintessential arcade port. They pretty much took everything from the arcade game and shoehorned it into this little cartridge. So kudos to Konami for that. If you are a fan of retro arcade games and you love the brutal difficulty in retro arcade games, you should definitely pick up a copy of Rush N Attack, because I remember playing this in a grocery store in my town when I was growing up, and I remember how hard it was. And actually, it's weird because I was always fond of the more difficult games because they gave me a reason to come back for more. And so that's part of the reason, and actually the main reason why I'm fond of Rush N Attack. This has been 8-Bit Animal. I'll catch you beautiful people tomorrow.